started. We have a nice small group today, so let's hope that we will have some chit chat and conversation. Right, so let me move this thing out the way so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm sure by now that most of you have heard about the SAPEX conference that's coming up. A quick reminder, 24th to 26th of August. We've had to go the online route again this year because I think we're still in uncertain territory because of COVID, and it is the most responsible thing to do. We have a really superb lineup of speakers. Some of them are already available to look at on the website. The others we are still finalizing. We're also still looking at platform that we use, because obviously that's an important element for not only the delegates, but also our exhibitors and sponsors. So networking, navigation, that type of thing is really important for everybody. So as soon as we have that finalized, we'll let you know, but in the meantime, all systems are go. So, and now my mouse doesn't want to work. Why is this? Okay, so the topic that I chose is the perfect imperfection of online shopping. And the reason for this was I watched a TED talk not so long ago on the circular economy, and it had to do with online shopping as well. And the statistics that came out of it were absolutely horrific. So there's some really good stuff in TED Talk. So let me tell you, if you don't watch them and there's something you're interested in, it's a really nice way to get a quick dose of meaningful information. They're very worthwhile having a look at. So this was a result of my watching this. I watch them because I have a very limited attention span, so they serve their purpose really well for me. So here we are in our Community Connect session. Those of you that attended last year will know we did one, I think, every week. It's quite a bit of hard work. We now have doing it once a month because I think the majority of people are back at work, and all things are as far as they can go back to some sort of normality. So we're a small group, so I want to take the opportunity for people to say hi. So does anybody want to volunteer, or going to have to pick on you to do that? No, nobody's going to volunteer. And the chat room is not the place to do it. Okay, Jason, I'm going to pick on you. You're next to me on the screen. Just tell us hello, how are you, and where are you from?
Hi, I'm Jason Gounden. I'm from Durban, so I'm not going to be taking leave to travel to the beach. It's around the corner. I work for SAT South Africa, and yeah, our business is about servicing the medical sector and personal hygiene channels as well.
Thank you, Jason. And I've known Jason for a very long time now. I can't remember how many years. In fact, if I start telling people how many years I've known people, it kind of does give the age away. Okay, let's talk. Miss Gibson, let me pick on you. How are you? Are you still in Durban?
I'm very well, thank you. Still in Durban? Yes, also not going away because I have everything right here. Yes, I work for an IT firm. We implement an ERP called QAD. So I specialize on the supply chain side.
Thank you. It's good to have you with us. VJ. Nope. Okay. Krishna?
Yes, hi, I'm Krishna Witta. I work at a dried fruit company outside of Ceres in the Western Cape. Yeah, we supply locally and internationally dried fruit.
Very nice. So you're Cape Town side, which is also very nice. Anybody else want to volunteer to say hi? The remainder of you, or shall I leave you alone?
I'll go.
A lot of
hi.
Hi.
I think we should show a video. So this is my first time joining one of this, like a quick session.
Okay.
So my name is Dino. I work for Pep Stores, retail. I work at our central office, and I'm based in Cape Town. I work in our supply chain, but I form part of our shipping team.
Okay, it's good to have you here with us.
Thank you.
Glad you could be here. I think, yes, if you can put your cameras on while we're doing the introductions, that would be super, so we can see who's hiding behind them. Okay, so we have Raina. Hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. No. David, you want to pop on and say hi? I know some people just don't like talking. Okay. Cauliflower, you know, I'm going to call you out because you are part of the SAPEX, part of the SAPEX furniture, if you will. Cauliflower is our young professional committee chairman. We're very pleased to having him on board. He's doing incredible work for us. So Cauliflower, you want to just say hi, say a few words about the initiative that you're working on?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Tanya. Morning, everyone. I'm Kulofelo, and I'm from Boksburg. I'm a full-time student, and as Tanya said, I'm on the committee I'm on the Young Professionals Committee, which is a committee that's aimed at inspiring young people to join the community. You know, given the transient nature of the industry and the changes that are happening, you know, I believe that it's important to be a part of a community where you can connect with other professionals, you know, and have your finger on the pulse, as to say. So that's one of the initiatives we're driving, trying to reach out to university students and trying to get them on board, you know, so they can take a much more active role in their career paths. So yeah, thank you. Thank
you, Cauliflower, and he's doing an absolutely sterling job. Okay, so we've got more people coming on the call, so I'm going to start getting into it. So let me first say that this is obviously not an area of expertise for me, so I had to do quite a bit of digging and delving and research into this to gather more information. And I see that my friend here, Gary Benatar, is on the call, so I'm sure that if I talk nonsense, he's going to call me out on it because he's a well-seasoned professional, and I'm pretty sure he's got his head wrapped around this topic. Hi, Gary.
Hi, Tanya. How are you keeping?
I'm good. How are you? Good to have you with us.
Very good. Thanks. I'll try to stay as long as I can. I do have another meeting to attend, but I thought I'd give you a bit of time.
Okay, thank you. Oh, man. This thing doesn't want to work today. Okay, so if we look at consumerism, we kind of go back to the late 1600s in Europe, and that's the modern concept of it that they refer to. And here you can see a very, very old bookstore, people in there purchasing books. I mean, this is a typical old style library that you would see with a ladder going up the side. So, I mean, shopping is not something that is foreign by any stretch of the imagination. So, but it does go back a long time. And it's not just talking about the trading aspect, which is what we all know from back in the days when they traded cows and sheep and things like that. Obviously, trading was a big part of what they would call or term shopping from way back in the day. There wasn't as much as money exchanging hands as there was goods. And I think people traveled around the world selling their share, you know, their goods and items that they had. So in some cases, it's spices and all sorts of good things like that. So this has always been, this goes back in the day of when we were, I think, still cavemen. So if we move on a little bit here, we go to what they call the mom and pop stores, the small family owned independent businesses. And they kind of go into the late 1800s. You can imagine back then there was very limited time to shop. The access to different products was very limited. But I think back in those days, things were still of a high quality. And it was very much more natural and less processed and all those good things. So I think that was a good time for people to be doing shopping, despite the fact that everything was cash. There was nothing electronic. It was a much more simple way of doing things, a simple way of life. So your department stores, I think this one is Bloomingdale's, started mid-1800s, early 1900s, and obviously this changed the shape of consumerism and shopping. They stocked everything from clothing to furniture and all sorts of things in one store, which was something new to consumerism and something that obviously humans embraced and particularly enjoyed. So that goes back quite a long time if you think about it, from where we are today. And then we go to the 1970s and 1980s. Again, shopping hours were not particularly favorable. You kind of had to shop between 9 to 5. You had limited time. If you had time on the weekends to shop, it's not like it is now where everything's open. I mean, in Europe and the US, they've got 24-hour shops. Yeah, sure, we've got the garages and certain other things, but it was nothing like that. You had to kind of get your shopping done during daytime or on a weekend, Saturday morning, because the rest of the time you couldn't get it done. And you had to stand in long queues like this because there wasn't the opportunity to do any online shopping and the like. So we really, really have grown and evolved. And I think from the time of our online shopping, it's happened quite rapidly. It's escalated very quickly. So now you basically can shop from the comfort of your couch, and you have access to basically, I would say, hundreds of millions of different items. Certainly they do overseas. I think that here it's a little bit more limited, but it's easy, right? I mean, now you don't have to stand in queues. You can shop whenever you want, at any time you want, and you'll get your product within a couple of days, which is great, because if you have to wait to go shopping, there's no chance that that's going to happen for you if you don't have the time. Our lives are busier, our time is less, we're under more pressure. So it's all about convenience for all of us. So talking about convenience, the growing role of convenience is 83%. People say, 83% of people say that online shopping is now more important than it was 5 years ago. And I mean, if you look at the rate that online shopping has grown in that short period of time, I guess it's no wonder that that is such a large number. So at the end of the day, the way that shopping has gone as consumers, I think that we are, to an extent, not selfish, but because we've gotten where we are so quickly, we expect more service, better products, more products, quicker delivery, and we continue to expect more. And I think the older generation, as in myself, we do a little bit of online shopping. I'm not a great fan because I still like to experience the shop. I want to see it. I want to try it on, and those sort of things. But certainly the younger generation, and I know that my son, who's 18, you know, he will buy everything online. He's not phased. You know, as far as he's concerned, this is the way to go. And I think the younger generations are what are driving this this retail online shopping kind of development and behavior. So yeah, they are creating for themselves a bigger expectation by consumers because they have created the expectation. So as Queen puts it so nicely, I want it all, I want it all, I want it all, and I want it now. So this is where we are. So there are many, many advantages to online shopping. Time saving, we talked a bit about that. You don't physically have to drive to the shop, park your car, get into the store.
Tanya, can I interrupt you?
Yes.
You said it's the younger generation. It's interesting that COVID forced the older generation who was scared to go into stores onto online shopping. And today they've stayed with online shopping. So people that would never have been a target market are today adding to quite a high percentage of online shopping. Well over 50% of online shoppers are out of the range that was expected originally.
You're 100% spot on. So people that weren't going to do that have now had to do it, which has created such an enormous growth in this particular sector. So thank you for bringing that up. It's
and it's also meant that the retailers have had to change their product offering. So whereby they were offering games and stuff that young people want and things, they're now offering anti-wrinkle creams.
Us old people.
Okay, I will mute myself.
You see, I told you he'd called me out. So no, it makes a good point, definitely makes a good point. And a lot of the figures that they're talking about are definitely related to COVID, especially when we look at some of the not so positive parts of the online shopping. So easy to find. Generally, you can find practically anything you want online. In South Africa, I think that the product range may be less. Rapid home delivery. I mean, if you look at, for example, Checkers and their 60/60, that came about as a result of COVID, like Gary's mentioned, and people were buying online rather than going out. I know that I had to do some online shopping during COVID because my son tested positive, so we all had to self-isolate, and the only way that we could get food was if we bought it online. So it definitely has driven more innovation in terms of other stores that wouldn't have gone that route to test the waters. It's convenient. The price and selection is obviously a good option. Fuel saving and no crowds. The fuel saving, yes, for you personally, but in terms of carbon emission, you know, that definitely isn't working in favor for online shopping. Information and reviews. So a lot of people will leave reviews. If you go on to Takealot, for example, people will post reviews and you know whether it's a good or bad product. You're not relying on the salesperson in the, I don't know, Incredible Connection to tell you what the best computer is, because he's going to make a sale out of it. He'll sell you anything. But this, you have access to people's reviews and comments. So you have a much better feel for what it is that you're buying and how good it's going to serve your purposes and needs. So obviously there is a downside to everything. And some of the disadvantages are delay in delivery. So sure, you expect it quicker. There's been a delay. It takes longer, not the end of the world. Not enough discounts, which I found to be quite a strange disadvantage, because I do believe that there are a lot more discounts online compared to in the stores. I may be wrong. Can't touch and feel, that definitely is an area, I think, for me and the older people that are used to the brick and mortar stores. No shopping experience. So if you're buying online, you're not going to stop in for that cup of coffee, you know, sit down, chat, watch the people walking by. I'm one of those people that will sit there for a long time watching people and wondering who they are, what they do, what are they doing here, and those sorts of things. I know it's a bit eerie. It's definitely not stalkerish, I promise. You get up and close and personal with the item. So I can't imagine buying a lounge suite online, for example, because how do you really get in touch with it? Sorry. So you can't feel it, you can't sit in it, you can't feel whether it's comfortable and that sort of thing. So that for me is definitely a disadvantage. Fraud and safety issues. I think obviously there's a lot of work that's been done to alleviate that, but it still happens. You know, hackers and criminals are always one step ahead of us, and they will find, you know, where there's a will, there's a way. Quality issues, you know, substandard quality. You could buy something that's been advertised, it looks great, you buy it and it's not what you expected. But, you know, if you have access to reviews, in some cases, you can alleviate that. I've had a look at items on Takealot, for example, where it looks great, great product, price is great. You read the reviews, not so great. Failures while making online purchases. So you're online, you're halfway through your transaction and boom, you know, digital complications and all falls apart, which I think can be frustrating, especially if you've gone to a point where you've paid money. I don't know how difficult it is to get the money back or not. It's not something that I've personally experienced. Unclear website policies. You know, when there's a T's and C's and there's policies, they're always hidden right at the back, and the fine print. And as you get older, like I am, I can't see the small print anymore. So us older people really need to kind of like boom up that text so we can read what it is that those are like. But we are impatient, and we always kind of will just click that accept, but we don't often know what it is that we're accepting. So that's something that you need to look out for. Delivery and logistics issues. I think that's more kind of prevalent in the reverse logistics, but obviously there are things that go missing, things that get lost, and all those good things. Additional charges. So I'm guessing that in some cases there is a delivery fee. I know that if you import things, there are duty charges and things like that. So there may be additional charges that you were not aware of up front that kind of catch you when you do the purchases. So there are lots of disadvantages, but there is a pro and con to everything in life. The one thing that does not come up at all is what this online shopping does to the planet and our world. And that's really sad. I did a lot of looking into the online shopping, and it really, unless you really go into looking at, you know, circular economy and the environmental words, you're not going to get any pros and cons that include what we're doing to the planet. And what we're doing to the planet is very, very sad. You can see by the look on this little planet's face that is not happy at all with what's going on. And this is something very concerning that we all need to sit up and pay attention to. So online shopping has converted people to shopaholics. There are people that literally just can't contain themselves and they have to shop. I know people like this. And I guess whether you were a shopaholic before in the traditional store, whether it's online, it's much of a muchness, but I think it's that much easier to do it online. And let's face it, we are bombarded with information. If you talk about something and you say, oh, you know, I like this perfume, I've heard about it, friends have spoken to me about it, 10 to 1, you're going to get an advert that pops up. It's on your Facebook feed. It's in your face all the time. So you can't escape it. It's there all the time. The temptation is always there. And a lot of people are obviously spending more than they can afford because it's so easy to get to. So these are some of the things that are driving people to just buy and buy and buy and buy. And let's face it, we don't always need what we buy. It was a good deal, so let's buy it. So when you do that online shop and you get your package, and I mean, these days it's really exciting to get an online package. I don't know about anybody else, but back in the day, we used to receive cards and letters in the post. And for me, that was great because it was exciting. I got a letter from my grandparents. What did they have to say? What was all the news? And that was, you know, the things that we were used to. Nowadays, you know, the satisfaction comes from the online delivery that arrives at your door that you ordered last night. So not everybody's happy with their purchases. And when that is the case, in most instances, you get what they call free return. But there is no such thing as a free, easy return. Sure, for us, it may be free and easy, but in reality, there is no such thing. So if we look at some of the statistics around online shopping and the omnichannel, online purchases are plus 30%. So if somebody's making a purchase, they are 30%, but the rates of return are 30% plus higher than a brick and mortar store, which is between 5 and 10%. So that extra 20% in terms of revenue money and the impact to the environment is massive. It's massive. And it's not something that we think about. So when you get something you don't want, you return it. So what? You know, it's not what I wanted. It needs to go back. And people will go and buy, for example, 5 pairs of pants, the same pants in 5 different colors, purely because they want to try them on and see. They know that they're going to return 3, but let's just see what all the colors look like. And that's the kind of mentality that we've developed with online shopping because it's easy to do that. You don't have to get back in your car and go back to the store and do the refund or the returns. So if you look at the cost of returns, and this is where it's really, really scary, they require 20% more in space and labor, and they cost as much as 59% of the selling price. I mean, that by itself is absolutely insane. $70 billion was lost in returns online, which equates to a 73% growth over 5 years. So that problem is just growing. It's grown by 73% in 5 years. What is it going to look like in the next 5 years? As Gary says, older people have been converted to online shopping. It's more people, more returns, more money that is lost. And over the next couple of years, as the e-commerce grows globally, because obviously we see that it's growing here in our third world countries, as we put it, it's definitely growing. We are looking at returns over $1 trillion a year. I mean, just imagine what you could do with that money, the things that we could change in the world with that kind of money. And at the end of the day, all things said and done, who pays for it? We do. The consumer pays for it in a roundabout way. So at the end of the day, you send it back, free return, but you're still paying for it in one way or another.
Tanya, I have to interrupt again.
Yes.
So you're quite correct. Returns are a big portion of online shopping. And obviously, it's a culture that develops with what's offered. And everyone's incentivized, free return, go into a shop, buy 3. I don't want to sound sexist in this, but most women will buy 3 items, the size they think they are, the size they wish they are, and the real size they are. Or you'd buy a size up or a size down, but being blunt. Okay, we have a high sense of returns. But what's happening with technology, there are going to be apps and systems that you can use your phone that will scan your body and match the size of the item to you. So returns can come down. So, and that's what the big drive now with artificial intelligence and big data is, to help guys to bring that returns down. The other thing with obviously deliveries being inefficient, one delivery for one order, there's a big trend now to consolidate orders. So you can actually buy online and get it delivered by one company at one point. So that's a new trend that's starting. And that will bring the carbon footprint down. So there's a lot of developments happening that's going to change the way the paradigm works at the moment as we develop more and more.
No, absolutely. And that's certainly one of the things that that's coming through. The artificial intelligence will definitely help that. And there is a lot of innovative things happening, you know, in the background to help change this current picture and image. And one of the things that seems to be lacking, that they need more of, is data. They don't have enough data. And they're trying to collect all this data so that they can kind of use that to change the way that the online shopping happens. So, for example, one of the things that I heard about was that Amazon, for example, will, like you get a credit rating, they will rate you as a customer. So if you, for example, have multiple returns and it's something that you're always doing, you will be flagged like that. So they're starting to track the consumer's behavior and how they do things and why they do things. And hopefully over time, that will also contribute to changing this problem. But yeah.
We went to a retailer in Germany that does an online retail, but it's actually like a club. So you've got to be a member and you've got to be invited by other members to join. And if I invite you to join, I get rated on your performance, which affects my discount coding. So if I've invited a bad person, it affects me. So I'm going to only try invite the good guys who make their payments and don't return too much and things like that. So very interesting dynamics that's starting to happen there. Of course, the ultimate online shop will be when we order a recipe and our 3D printer produces it at home.
And then there's that. And you know what, to be honest, I actually don't think that we're too far away from that. If you look at the way in which this has grown and technology is growing, I honestly have to say, I don't think we're too far away.
So and that will then take out all the shopping and everything, and all you'll do is order product to be produced at home in your online printer. I mean, you watch Star Trek and you had that whatever machine that produces the food and produces whatever you want. It's going to be an interesting world that we move to. I think I won't be alive when that happens, but it will be coming.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to be alive when that happens either, but we'll see how quickly it turns. So definitely some interesting insight, Gary, and I'm pleased that you're on the call to give some valid contribution here. So a lot of the returns, they go back, and there is a massive amount of warehousing space that's needed for the stuff to go. And Gary, I know that you can give me some insight on this particular area, because warehouses traditionally are built for the storage of inventory that needs to go out, not that needs to come back. And with the amount of online shopping that's being returned, that obviously has become a problem for warehousing space.
Yeah, so return centers is a whole now new channel of logistics and a whole process operations that's got to happen. And in America and first world countries, there's now retail stores that are repurposing and selling a lot of the return stuff. Yeah. So it's actually a channel to the market to get cheaper product that's gone through a process of return, because there's so much of it coming out in the market that to get it out, you now create different level stores. So in the UK on clothing, there's TJ Maxx and companies like that focus on end of season returns and so on. And I think eventually in South Africa we'll have it as well.
We'll hopefully get to that point.
At the moment you've got it in these factory shops and a little bit of a couple of seasonal sales that companies will have where they liquidate and get rid of all their old stock and their returns.
So
but it's not going to a channel yet. No.
So I mean, here it's here they auction it. I mean, this is in the US, to discount stores and authorized resellers. So they palletize it, and then you buy a pallet, but they put the really good stuff and the more expensive stuff on the outside, so it looks good and impressive, but on the inside there's lots of junk. So you really don't know what you're getting. And based on this type of model, more than a third of it goes to a landfill. So it's still not really addressing the problem. It helps, but it's really not addressing the bigger problem. But let's hope that in future they have more of these options to pass on and resell. So 5 billion pounds of waste ends up in landfills annually. At the rate that we are filling landfills, I just don't know how many more dumping sites we can have. Everything seems to end up in a landfill, and you know, it's the stuff that's made is not made to necessarily be recycled. It's cheap, fast-moving stuff. It's not meant to last, so it needs to. It's going to end up in a landfill, and the way it's not made to be naturally recyclable or easily recyclable. And that's where it kind of goes back to the circular economy. You need to look at that part of it before we start creating and developing and making all the stuff that we can't do anything with. And this is a global, massive problem. I mean, if you look at the pictures here, we've got mattresses and all sorts of things in these landfills. I don't know where or how many we've got in South Africa, but I know that in the US particularly, they've got a massive problem with their landfills. Interesting. And a lot of the statistics that come out on information is based on Amazon. I mean, because they are the biggest online store, retail store, but they give off as much carbon dioxide as a small country, just Amazon. I mean, that is a lot of carbon dioxide. So sure, we're buying online because it saves fuel or carbon emissions when we go to the store, but the amount of it that's being created from online deliveries, I think far exceeds anything that we would give off if we were going to the store. So, you know, there's really not much of a balance to be had there. Then we've got our packaging. So again, Amazon, we've got to look at the biggest player here. Ships on average 400 million packages a month. That could well be more now, but that was the figure that I was looking at. That is huge. And every one of them goes out in a cardboard box. Every single one of them. It's nicely sized, small little cardboard box. I know that, for example, Takealot, they have specific sizes that your product has to fit in, and you know, but I mean, at the end of the day, they all have to go somewhere and they have to be recycled. And in a lot of cases, a lot of them can't be recycled. If there's not damage, but if they are marked or things are spilt on them and they're soiled, they can't necessarily be recycled in the way that they should be. And what was interesting is that the US was shipping their boxes to China to be recycled, but China have come back and said, no, this is not working for us anymore. There is now legislation around that says they're not taking it anymore. They're not going to do it. So the US are stuck with it, and they are ended up in landfills. They're incinerating things that could be recycled. So this is another big problem that needs to be tackled over time. How do we get rid of all this? We are killing forests to build cardboard boxes to ship online things. So that's another negative, extremely negative in terms of online and what it's doing to our environment. And if we look at the biggest culprit, it's what they call fast fashion. And very interestingly, we used to shop back in the day with 4 seasons, you know, spring, summer, autumn, winter. There was a fashion change for each season. Great. You know, you kind of can keep up with the fashion if you're looking at 4 seasons. That's gone to 51 seasons in a year. If you go into, for example, H&M in Europe or the USA, they have new stuff in their store every second day. You will not find the same items every second day. It's insane. Why do we need so many clothes? I mean, I'm a simple person. I know I'm a woman and I probably should like to shop and buy new clothes. But to me, you know, how much can you wear? Do you need a new outfit every day? No. So why are we doing it? And I see by the shopping behavior of my teenage son, I think a lot of it's driven by peer pressure, but they want the latest and greatest. And when he goes in, he loves H&M. He has seen something he wants. It's a new t-shirt. He has to have it. I cannot tell you what his wardrobe looks like, but this is the youth. This is how they shop. This is what they want. And so the retailers are quite happy to service that and meet that demand. So 51 seasons. I mean, you need to get your head around that. This is a 400% increase since the 1980s. 400%. So it's not going to get better. It's not going to get any easier. It's going to get worse. I can't see that changing.
Tanya, just jumping back in on the waste and the cardboard, the main retailers are starting to take it back. So when they ship out from their DCs to the store, whatever cardboard is going to store comes back to their DCs, they're baling it and they're recycling that, or a percentage of that or whatever gets back to the DC. And in the DC, that then got sold for recycling. Originally, you're quite correct, it was sent to China, but as China's become a big enough consumer market themselves, they're generating a lot of the cardboard locally. So that they're recycling is their own cardboard they don't want to be buying. The biggest market for recycled cardboard is now Turkey, but that's changing. But there is motivation for countries themselves, like America and South Africa, to start repurposing infrastructure that they can then pulp the stuff back and put it back into our own cardboard. Okay, the problem with online stuff is the stuff goes to your house. Now you've got to be able to get it back to a retail store that's got a return logistics, or if you don't have, what's the right word? Recycling in your waste recovery in your area, that doesn't go back, it goes to landfill. So I know that here in Cape Town, they collect a separate bag for recycling. It's not as strict as in Europe. It's just one bag and you throw your glass, plastic, cardboard all into it, and they collect it and they eventually sort it and hopefully recycle it, or at least you feel good that you're doing it separately at your house. But if you live in Europe, you get fined. So you actually have to sort your waste into plastic, into glass, into cardboard and paper, and into other waste. So you have 4 or 5 bins that get collected if you live in Europe, and it's strict, it's regulated. And unless it's regulated and controlled, people aren't incentivized to actually do anything about it.
No,
but it has to happen right. As part of our process. A lot of the retailers that we're working with, and I won't mention names, are actually gearing towards, and worldwide, are gearing towards a zero to landfill process on their return logistics.
Wow.
Okay, and one of the retailers here in South Africa is almost achieving that. I won't mention their name, but they have a black color.
Okay. So, I mean, that would make for a really nice story, not a feel-good story, but a really, really positive story that it can be done. But I think a lot of the retailers do a lot of good talk, a lot of good marketing campaigns, promotional campaigns about saving the planet. We repurposing this, we recycling that, but in reality, it's not really being recycled. There's a lot of talk going on. So it is encouraging to hear that these initiatives are really happening on a smaller scale, but there's definitely room for improvement. And we hope that in the future, there'll be a lot more of it. In terms of recycling, we do it. We bought bins from, I think it's Westpac, and they cover glass, cans, and paper and plastics. So I separate all my stuff, and then there's somebody that comes past and fetches it. It's small, but it's something. If we all did a little bit, it would make a big difference. So
I started separating it into 5 bins, but the company that comes and collects the recycle in my area throws it all into one truck.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so it becomes a waste of time. Okay. And I spoke to the driver the one day, and he says, yeah, but then you're cutting people's jobs, because they've got people that spend time in the mounds now sorting that into paper, plastic, and glass.
Okay.
So I didn't want to avoid jobs, you see. So you want to encourage labor in this country and wasteful jobs. So you mustn't sort at home. You're giving someone a job.
Okay, that's an interesting thought. And I mean, we have a lot of people here that come down the streets. In the morning you hear the little trolleys coming along, the recyclers, and they're coming for their plastics and papers and things like that. It's also giving people a job and an opportunity to earn some money.
It's an informal industry that exists.
It's a good industry.
Well, if you watch that Casanomic revolution, these guys are probably driving around in Range Rovers in the evening.
Maybe I need to consider a career change then.
Okay.
Okay, so
you're at about between 1,500 to 2,500 rand a ton of baled cardboard.
Wow, that's a lot of cardboard. That's an awful lot of cardboard.
A ton of baled cardboard is about equivalent to two pallets worth.
Okay, so that's actually not a lot if you think about it in the grand scheme of things.
So if you think about it, the average cardboard case that is used for a grocery delivery weighs about 500 to 600 grams on average. So if a distribution center's shipping out 5 million cases a week, they're shipping out 2.5 tons of cardboard a week.
Jeez. That's a lot of cardboard.
Yeah, 2.5. Yeah, a million cases. So grams, yeah. So it's 2,500 kilograms. 2.5 million kilograms. 2.5 million kilograms of cardboard.
My word. That's an awful lot of cardboard.
So 2,500 tons.
You know, to try and get your head around these figures is quite something. It's not something that we ever think about every day. I mean, I certainly don't. So, you know, looking into this topic for me was absolutely mind-boggling. So we talk about fashion, which is one of the things that we are not all, but most people are driven by. It's the second most polluting industry in the world. So here on the right-hand side, they pack them in bales and move them out. We talk about a little bit more about that in the next slides. And on the left-hand side, this is a dump or a landfill full of clothing that cannot be used. It's either second-hand clothing that just can't be resold or is not used. Clothing is generally not donated. And this is something that absolutely blew my mind, because if you think that you've got all this extra stuff that needs to go somewhere, and all these second-hand clothes that are typically, you know, really wearable because people don't wear them as long as they should because they keep buying new stuff. There's a need for it. There's a demand for it. I mean, in a country like ours where there's so much poverty, people need clothes, right? So you'd think it would go to them. Certainly not.
Sorry, if I look at these pictures alone, I mean, the first thing people think of is clothing and what people wear. But at the same time, you know, often a mechanic falls short of cloth to clean hands and things like that at the workshop. You know, this can be given away, or they'll probably pay for it because you always run short on things like that. There's always a way around, but I get it.
No, there is. And I know that in some cases they do recycle these for certain cloths and things like that, but there's not nearly enough of it happening to deal with this situation at the moment. But yeah, you're right. You make a good point. You know, we all need cloths and cleaning things. And I mean, surely they could be repurposed in some shape or form for this. Maybe they are. That I don't know. So what happens to clothes when they're returned? Buying and returning clothes is the easiest it's ever been. But what happens to those clothes when they are sent back? So we assume that when they go back on the shelves. I mean, sure, when we go on to into the store, it would appear that way. And I mean, sometimes you pick something up from on a rack and there's, you know, the tag's been stapled back onto the outfit. You know, you can see that something's been returned and put back on the shelf. But that's not always the case. Obviously, from an online point of view, where do they go? So 1% of clothing is properly recycled, 1%. It takes 12 years to recycle what retailers sell in 48 hours. The fashion industry was responsible for the emission of 1.7 billion tons of CO2 in 2015. So this is some time back, or 4.8% of the global carbon emissions, 35.7 billion tons that same year. This is a massive amount of CO2, massive amount of CO2. So these are all the type of contributing factors that are affecting our environment that we really don't give a second thought to, unless it's something that you're interested in or you're dealing with or you understand. I mean, and the work that Gary does, this is the type of thing that he gets to hear about all the time. But the general people really don't give it a second thought. Clothing isn't donated or given to people in need. It's sold. So $20 million worth of used or not purchased clothing is bought from America and Canada only by various countries. There's a lot of African countries, Kenya, Rwanda, Senegal, they buy bales of clothing and then they sell it. And I mean, this is good brand clothing. It's, you know, H&M and Zara and those types of brands. And it's sold, I guess, for a pittance, but the fact is it's still sold. It's not donated. South Africa is one country that won't do it. They don't allow us to buy secondhand or used clothing from Europe or the USA. And I guess that's a good thing. However, it kind of does, if you look at our textile industry and our clothing, a lot of it isn't even made here. In fact, most of it's not made here. So it kind of does make you wonder, does it defeat the purpose or not? So yeah, I'm not too sure about that one, because most of our stuff, I guess, comes in from Thailand, China, wherever else it's made. And that's another thing that needs to change, is supporting localization. I mean, in fact, years ago, we used to have a really good textile industry, but that's far gone. But we need to look at bringing that back somehow. So if we could extend the life of clothing by a further 9 months, we would reduce the carbon waste and water footprint by 20 to 30% each. That's a big number. So we can all do a little bit to contribute towards that. Another interesting fact, it takes 2,720 liters of water to make a t-shirt. That's how much we normally drink over a 3-year period. I mean, those are insane numbers, and water is going to be a very scarce commodity in years to come. In fact, they say that it's one of the things that we will be fighting over, is water, because there will not be enough. So why are we using water to make t-shirts that we don't need? It just boggles the brain. So, you know, it's kind of don't stop the shop. We want to carry on shopping. And consumerism is just growing. It's not going to slow down anytime soon. Let's not kid ourselves. Unless we take drastic steps and we start really educating the youth and our children about what it's really doing to the world we have to live in, and the world that their children's children need to live in. Because by then, you know what, I mean, how long can the world sustain this? And when did we become hoarding humans with more stuff than we can track? Life is not about experiences and all the sorts of things that people used to do back in the day. You know, dinner around the table, time spent doing different things. It's about buying stuff. It's about getting stuff. How much, you know, do you have the latest TV? You should have the latest TV. Do you have the latest pair of shoes that H&M bought out? You know, the way that we live our lives has changed. And if you look at it at the end of the day, you can't take it with you. You're going to take your TV into your coffin? No. So we really need to have a little bit of a mental adjustment on why are we doing this and what do we gain from it? Because at the end of the day, it really doesn't hold any value. Unless you're benchmarking your life against how much stuff you've got. Sure, it's nice to have nice things, and you can afford them, and you're supporting the economy, but there has to be there's a fine line, and we have to draw a line in the sand somewhere. So you need to become a more, hello, yes.
You've got to take a different perspective.
Okay.
There's 7 billion people on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
If we stop consuming, we cut out jobs for some of those people,
sure.
Which then gives them ability to earn food. And so you may not have the circular economy that actually sustains the 7 billion. The question is, does the planet need 7 billion, and how do you stop it? How many people can the planet support? And how do we interface through our consumerism, through our, because if we didn't consume stuff, we wouldn't need a supply chain.
Agreed.
Okay, so SAPIX wouldn't exist. We wouldn't exist as consultants. And everyone would have their own little farm and grow their stuff and live in their old rags in their houses and live. So part of the society is interlinked. and you have to look at it in that perspective as well.
Right.
So we create a carbon footprint, but we also consume, and we create jobs, and we create economies, and we create sustainability in that sense. So if we didn't consume, everyone would be starving and having to go forage for themselves.
I get you, and we do need to find a balance, but you know, and this is the problem, is that, you know, back in the day, we didn't have all these things, we didn't need them, we didn't use them, and now we have them. So you know, why has it changed? Why do we want more stuff all the time when we didn't need it back then, and we were able to look after ourselves, feed ourselves, and things like that? I mean, we still had supply chains back then. So it's just a different version, a bigger version. I'm really struggling to. We have to find a balance.
It's bigger because of the population that's got to be sustained. So we're at 7 billion people. Does the world need 7 billion people? I don't know how you get rid of the 6 billion that you think you don't need. Okay, or go the other way and say, how many people can the world actually sustain ultimately? So this planet must have a limited capacity.
Yes.
And with technology, it changes. But, you know, when we get to 10 billion people, will the planet fall over?
That's a it's a good question. I mean, does anybody know these things? I mean,
No,
as of now,
I mean, you just turn
can't.
around as a country, how many people can live in a country, and can a country sustain? So when does a country become overpopulated? That you actually get to a reducing capability to have income and wealth and capacity to sustain those people.
Yeah, I mean, but then it depends on what quality of life do you want to have in that country. So you have
100%.
such a small number that you have a high quality of life, but then in other countries you compromise and say, okay, we've got lots of space, we can have more people, but the quality of life is really bad. So it's a really, really difficult one, and I think it would really make for a really interesting discussion, definitely. But it's definitely something to think about. And I think that we need to think about how we recycle, how we consume, rehome, regift, reuse, lastly recycle, be more sustainable and less wasteful, educate your children, and you can make a difference. But to Gary's point, yes, we still need to give people jobs. People need to feed their families. But at what point do we get to there's too many people and we just can't sustain it anymore? And I don't think that future is too far off. So
I'm going to have to jump off the call. So cheers,
okay.
everyone.
Thank you, Gary. Take care.
You too.
Okay, so do we have any questions? I see lots of people had to jump out. David, are you still on the call? No, I can't see him. Okay, so David has asked the question, what is the purpose of the presentation? So SAPEX, and many of you here know SAPEX as the professional body for supply chain management, and the fact that we are here to create a community, to develop knowledge, to grow people, to advance the profession, to professionalize the profession so that it's recognized, to elevate skills and all those good things. So the purpose for these presentations is more of a exploration, discussion, different topics, and really just to pick them apart. So we're fortunate to have Gary on the call today, and if he's on these sessions and he generally jumps in and adds comments, which is really, really good because he's a wealth of knowledge. So it's not that I'm a expert in this area, it's about finding out little bits of information and sharing that. Possibly people know, possibly people don't know. If you've got a different opinion or view, you are more than welcome to jump in at any time during the session to have your say, to add your contribution, and to make comments. So the point of it is to bring the community together, to share information that they may or may not know, for them to network, to talk, to share their ideas. And obviously, if it's not something that adds value to you, or you don't feel it adds value, then by all means, we would like to hear that. But we do think that it adds value. Our feedback tells us it does. So it's up to you whether you think it's good or bad, or it's not. So I will reach out to David and just ask him the question of why he asked the question. But yes, that's basically it in a nutshell. So I am going to wrap up, and I hope that the people that are on the call that could stay have learned something, have heard something that they didn't know, and it added value in some small way. So that is what it's meant to do, is just to share some ideas and thoughts. And if you have any topics or things that you'd like to talk about, that you'd like to unpack or dissect or share, I think that coming out of this discussion, there's a lot of interesting things that we really can explore more, like how many people can the world take care of? You know, what happens if we carry on going the way we're going? You know, how are we going to manage that? What will the world look like? So really different dimensions to this, you know, circular economy, will it change it? How can it change it? All those sorts of things, lots of different dynamics. So lots to talk about, but I am very grateful for you all being here, for joining us. If you've got any questions or anything else, please, you're more than welcome to drop me a note. If you have topics you would like to talk about, if any of you have something that you'd like to share, by all means, please let us know. We're always looking for new topics, new people, and interesting conversations. So without further ado, thank you for staying, and I hope that all of you enjoy a super long weekend with lots of rest, because there's much work to be done ahead of us this year. We've got to keep positive and keep going. And yeah, everybody has the ability to make a difference somehow. And in your small way, whatever that is, you can go forth and do it. But I think educate the people, your children, your grandchildren, on how to look after the planet better. And we can all make a small difference. So thank you all so much. Take care. And I hope to see you at the next session.
Thank you, Tanya.
Pleasure. Thanks for being here, everyone.